So again, welcome everybody. My name is Debbie Davidson, and I am a wildlife biologist and a forester. And in my job, I have to be aware of everything in the environment, whether I'm managing an area for trees, for tree production, wood production, or if I'm managing an area for a certain kind of wildlife, then I have to know what that wildlife requires. So again, it encompasses everything from soils to water, air quality, plant identification, tons of botany, tons of wildlife stuff. So again, a little bit of everything, and you'll see as we go through here. Even involves maintaining machinery, driving tractors, all kinds of fun stuff. All right, so again, welcome to our 5th grade field trip for composting. And we will go ahead, again, that Nucleus website, that msnucleus.org. If you need more information, you can give us a yell as well. All right. And today we are going to be looking at how we make compost. The compost is made of food waste, horse manure, and wood chips for the ones that we're doing at the Masonic Home. So food waste, horse manure, and wood chips. Those together, once they're heated up and aged and they decompose, it creates a very rich compost that we are then putting up on the hills above Masonic Home. So if you're down around Mission Boulevard, you can look up kind of between Dry Creek and Masonic Home, and you'll see some plants, some trees and all that we've already put up there, and you'll see some piles of dirt and compost. All right, we're going to learn about the organisms that promote this composting, and we're going to look at how composting helps us grow healthier food, how it provides nutrients to the soil. That's one of our main issues up there, is that the soil has been depleted, not much there. So again, composting is going to improve those nutrients, and look at how the matter moves around, how it continues to cycle, that we don't lose any part of this. It just keeps being cycled between the plants, the animals, the decomposers. So if you look at this lovely dish of fruits and veggies decomposing, I'm going to slow it down, and I want you to make your guess or your prediction. There we go. Watch how these items decompose. I want you to make your guess as to what is going to decompose the fastest and what will decompose the slowest. All right, so we've got 2 green apples. Those are some little white kind of onions, some little shallots. We've got some small tomatoes, some strawberries, a peach, looks like a potato, some squash, summer squash, bananas, zucchini, more tomatoes, some plums, and avocado. All right, got a good mix. So make your guess. What's going to decompose first? What will decompose last? You ready? This is good for your full bellies after lunch. Sorry. All right, through time lapse. Oh, strawberries already toast. Oh, the peach didn't last long. Oh, look at the tomato. It looks like it's bubbling. Oh, it's deflating. Oh, look at the banana. Oh, the apples are going. Oh, the plums. Oh, here goes the other apple. Oh, look at the banana, it's looking really good. Oh, look at that back tomato. Oh, all the liquids flowing out. So again, you may have experiments like this going on in your fridge where you get food and then you forget about it. Especially things like cucumbers. If you take the cucumbers and they stay in a bag and then you forget about them and you get out a bag full of liquid. Well, how does that happen? That's what we're talking about today, is this decomposition. Oh, there goes the other tomato. All right, look at what's happening now with the potato. The potato is sprouting. It's a starch. So that big part of the potato is the food for that plant until it can get settled. So while everything else is decomposing, ooh, the summer squash, look at that one, it's falling apart. So while everything else is decomposing, our potato did fine. All right, so how did you do? All right, let's watch one last time. So what's going to go first? Strawberries, peach, tomatoes. But look down here. Why does one tomato go and then the other tomato doesn't? What's the difference between these two apples? Why does one rot and decompose before the other one? That's a pretty big difference. What's the difference in these other tomatoes? Look, the other tomato in the back is still going strong. The other one's like bubbling. The bananas go pretty quick as well. What's happening with those shallots? How come those little onions aren't decomposing? Oh, finally the cucumber. Oh, look at the back tomato. It's bubbling and almost boiling. Lots of fluids. And here comes our potato starting to sprout. So what's happening here is this decomposition. We have organisms at work that are helping decompose this material. Okay, now if you just took your food waste and you threw it outside, it would attract a lot of mice and rats and bugs, and it would be smelly. Okay, so there is a correct way to compost and an incorrect way. That's what we're going to learn about today. So this is up at Masonic Home, and we are looking at both hot and cold composting. There are two different ways. The cool composting takes a long time, and it usually requires larger animals like the worms, lots of different organisms, the larger ones that you can see. The thermophilic or the hot composting uses more of the smaller actinomyces and smaller bacterias, not so much the larger organisms, because it heats up to a super high temperature of about, you see there, 70 degrees Celsius. That's about 140 degrees. All right, so here we've got a picture digging into a giant compost pile, and you see a little bit of steam coming off of that pile. And now the kids, if we were able to, we'd get you up there now and you would be getting your own spoonfuls and digging through this compost and manure and all this stuff yourself. So hopefully we'll try to get you up there to do that. But why is compost important? Why do we need all this stuff? How's it going to help your environment? Okay, it's going to reduce the waste volume. Again, our landfills are already getting full. Right now, most of your food waste is trucking all the way over through Altamont. So that's a big carbon cycle with all the trucks and everything having to move it. We produce compost that helps the quality of the soil. So right now up around Masonic, years ago, all those trees were cut before when the Spaniards and early Europeans came, was filled with live oak trees. They didn't understand how long it took those trees to grow, that they were such a slow growing tree. And so this topsoil all washed out. And so again, that's why it's not very productive right now. You can't have even many horses or cows on it because again, the grass is just depleted. It's not, the soils don't have enough nutrients. So our compost is going to help improve our soil quality and add nutrients to that soil. All right, so here's a quick little poem, The Compost Breakdance, and you'll see some of the little critters that we're going to get looking at here in a minute, but try to listen to the content of the poem. All right, here we go.
This is a poem called Compost Breakdance. It shows little organisms are eating and dancing and having fun as they break down food to produce compost for us. Cool composting starts organic matter in a heap, food waste leaves at least 1 meter deep. This slide is showing us that a traditional way of piling food and leaves and letting the organisms slowly do their magic. They need still air and moisture. The bad thing is that it releases methane, which is a greenhouse gas. There are many pathways different organisms take. The product compost is what they make. Cool composting takes time to collect. Organisms eating creates this brown effect. So as this is going through their system, they eat, they poop, and then the nutrients they get from what they're eating gets kind of put in their poop. And then as they're going around, they're making tunnels and they are mixing it, creating that brown effect. Other cool decomposers, ones that you know, pill bugs, ants, millipedes, help plants to grow. So there's other organisms that are involved. This is a millipede here. As it's going through, as you can see, it's making air spaces, and so as it's eating, it's producing our compost. Annelids such as worms, important to be found. Long poop trails nourish soil underground. If you look at this little picture, that worm is pooping. Food goes in and poop comes out. So it's like a little chemical compost factory. And if you look on below, the little black spots tell you that's poop. And so they're aerating and pooping and creating that compost. A decomposer's dream is to break things down, whether hot or cold. They make food brown. So this goes back. They're always working. They're always doing their job. Hot composting is needed if you want compost quick. Heat produced by microbes is the chemical trick. Thermophilic compost. Actinomyces produce heat. By munching on nutrients, nitrogen, carbon are a treat. Now, if you look at this little organisms, the little pink things are the microorganisms, and the orange. And what they're eating is they're taking up nitrogen and carbon, and they're reposing it into other useful parts. Many medicines produced by actinomyces, a bacteria in hot composting, giving off heat as it eats. Actinomyces are responsible for the earthy smell. Composting is complete and all is well. This picture is showing some of these microbes. These are electron scanning microscopes, so they're very small, but they are doing their things. Many, many medicines do come from these little organisms. A decomposer's dream is to break things down, whether hot or cold. They make food brown. Again, still doing their magic, even as we are reading this presentation. Decay produces nutrients, whether hot or cold, available for other plants, microbes, and mold. So a lot of this material that they're composting and breaking down, the nutrients and the elements are available to the plants which need them to grow. Compost by itself is not enough. Must be mixed with soil to make magical stuff. Crushed rock and organic matter makes rich soil. Compost is nutrient rich, not just food to spoil. So remember that you just don't put food waste. That will produce anaerobic composting, which just stinks and is not good. So you need to follow these methods that we'll be discussing later. Decomposition is essential to the entire food chain. Dead things are broken down. The life cycle can sustain. So this is not something just minor. This is an active part of all the life cycle. The little ones have to help support the larger as you go up the food chain. A decomposer's dream is to break things down, whether hot or cold. They make food brown. Sing it with me. A decomposer's dream is to break things down, whether hot or cold. They make food brown. Now, this is the essence of our presentation. Decomposers of compost. All of these animals throughout the food chain have their purpose. But remember, this is a food web. It goes in many different areas. The little cards that you have will help you try to figure this out.
Okay, so again, if you don't have this sheet yet, don't worry about it. Your teacher will get it to you. And again, teachers, you can find those where you registered. All right, so as you look at these decomposers of compost, again, starts with that organic matter, the organic debris, and then we can either go off in an area with our larger animals like our earthworms and our slugs. We head off to the smaller bacteria and fungi and the actinomyces. All right, so as we look at this pile of compost, you see a bit of steam coming off. Looks like just a bunch of leaves and bark that have been piled up. Let's see what happens.
This pile of leaves almost looks like an erupting volcano as the smoke comes up, telling us that there's some heat in there. You put your hands inside, it's warm, and that's because the little microorganisms are doing their job, eating and releasing energy, and we're seeing it as the creation of smoke.
All right, now is it smoke or is it steam? Which one is it? If it's smoke, then we have to have ignition. There would be a heat source, there'd be flame. So we do have a heat source. There's also moisture though in that pile. So it's steam actually that's coming off. And that steam is, again, the heat's being generated by those microorganisms that are breaking things down. Byproduct is the heat, hits the water that's in this pile, and that's then giving us our steam. So every time we dig into a pile of that compost, you will see that steam coming off. All right, so we're looking close at this organisms that are in this compost.
This is looking some more at this compost. We can see the red worm, which is a native worm to California. And we also notice just lots of other bugs just rolling around, doing their magic. You can see the ants. As he's pushing it around, you could see a lot of things moving. The ants are bigging, I think that ant is moving, and pupa, we must have disturbed a nest.
All right, so it is real important. Anytime you're working outside, one of the first things to do is look at where you're planting your feet. I'm from North Carolina. We have a lot of the big red ants, so the fire ants, and you don't want those because they swarm. So again, make sure you've got a safe place to stand. Make sure you're not standing in anybody's nest. Make sure there's nothing overhead that's going to drop down, but just be aware of your surroundings. So again, you saw the worm. I saw a couple faces going, ew. If you don't like worms, you can practice with little plastic ones like this, but the worms are not going to hurt you. Again, if you want to pick up something and you've got a high, you don't realize how strong your pinch is, okay? But if you want to observe something, you can always use a card and kind of swoop it under that animal to be able to study it and get a closer look, okay? Because your pinch is enough to cause some damage to the insides of some small animals. So again, it's good to use a little cup or a little piece of paper to scoop stuff up. All right, so lots of different organisms in our compost. Again, look at how hard this worm has to work. If you remember from the previous video, the worm is making its way through, it's basically eating its way through the compost and the soil. And as it's eating its way through, it's digesting, getting minerals out that it needs for life. And then it's leaving behind its poop. And in science, we call those worm castings. And people pay a lot of money for worm poop, for the worm castings. They've got a high nutrient count, so they're great in gardens, and other organisms like to live in it as well. So again, they're making some airways, some pathways, and leaving their poop in those airways. All right, so you've got to remember, we're talking food chains. We've got lots of different levels. We're going to start at the bottom. That's where we have our organic residue. So leaves, grass clippings, any kind of plant debris, food scraps, fecal matter like dog poop, cat poop, or raccoon poop, animal bodies, like if they're dead, grasshoppers, things like that, any of those other soil invertebrates. So that's our organic residue. All right, then our first level of primary consumers are things that feed on that organic residue. And you'll see there, it's things like actinomyces. You may not know actinomyces. I'll hold up this card. You'll see some more about this in a minute. It's kind of a white, fuzzy looking. A lot of people see it in a pile and think that it's like a mold, but it's not. That's its own. It's very, very important. That's what gives compost its earthy smell. So again, sow bugs, mites, nematodes. Then there's another layer, the secondary. So these are even larger organisms that prey on the primary. So again, you see the larger beetles. And then you've got your top layer, your tertiary, which is looking at the larger, like your centipedes, okay, your larger beetles, scorpions, things like that. So you've got your large animals, but if any one of these components falls apart or isn't there, then the whole system's going to crash. Okay, so we are going to be looking at again that how these decomposers convert our organic matter. So if you look at the ant, number one, okay, we've got to think about what that ant needs to survive. If it's got the food it needs, the nutrients, place to live, moisture content, and temperature. Again, it's got those big pinchers at the front. The fungi, like your mushrooms. So again, mushrooms, many, many different varieties. Some of them only live an hour. Some of them may live several weeks. So again, all different times. Look at number 3, the worms. Lots of different varieties of worm. Another type of composting is vermicomposting, and that's composting with worms specifically. So you know there are lots of different types of worms. Number 4 is again a microscopic look at a piece of bacteria, a type of bacteria. So those, again, you're not going to be able to see those in just the regular soil. You've got to have special equipment for that. The actinomyces, that's number 5. That again, you will see. So if you see this white stuff, kind of, even if you're just walking around your backyard and you see some of that around some organic matter and all, know that that's a good thing. All right, let's see. So this is again, one of the sheets that you can run off. It's the decomposers versus cool versus hot. And you see there circled what we're going to be looking for with the hot compost. Again, it's more of the actinomyces. And with cold compost, you get the larger animals. All right, you've got some cards that you can run off that look like this. Those you see I ran off in color, but you can also just do them in black and white. But it shows you the animal and then information about it. And here I will show you how to make those. For our decomposer cards, you're going to need this Decomposers of Compost. This is again a sheet that your teacher can print out for you. This shows you the whole complex web. And then you'll also print out some individual sheets like this that give you a graphic of the animal and then a small description. Now on this sheet, you're going to cut the strips straight across. So I've done that, and you're going to put it on a card so that it wraps around. So again, the picture's on the front and the description is on the back. So you can see here, I've cut one of these out. So I've got both of the animal and the description. And then I'm just going to put a little bit of glue. And right at the fold is where the index card can go right there at that fold. Fold it over just like that. And you've got a card. Now, if you'd like for these cards to be secure really well, if you're going to have them outside a lot, you can also cover them with like the clear packing tape. Just simply put a layer over it and another layer over back here. And now with these cards, you'll see that you've got quite a few of them. It's a good thing to keep them all together in a bag. That way I can just throw them in my backpack if I'm ready to go hiking and want to look at decomposers. Okay, so I've got a lot of different cards. So you see how important it is to have the picture, and see how we just folded it over so that you have the other information. So for this springtail, I know it's an arthropoda, first level consumer. It jumps, and I will find it in a moist environment. If you cut all these things off, though, you're going to get them all confused. So that's why we say to cut straight across the street, or straight across the sheet, and just put it on the folded part. Okay, that way you get the organism and details about it. All right, and again, if you want them to last, I put just the clear packing tape over mine, and I usually put mine together with either like a carabiner, punch a hole, put one of these little cues, or just a piece of string, or you could even use one of the little office clamps, or just stick them in a bag. All right. So there are quite a few of these cards though. And if you've got any plastic animals, plastic bugs at home, you can try to match through and see. But this is really just for you to go outside in your own yard, go to the county park, city park, and just kind of look around and see what you can find. See if you can find any of these. Odds are you will find, of course, lots of ants. Remember, kind of be careful of those. Grasshoppers. Are those safe to pick up? Yes. But remember, they also will jump and they will fly, okay? So again, just beware. How about flies? We have lots of really cool varieties of flies. They're fun. How about spiders? Arachnids. Now, if you are allergic to bees, you are most likely allergic to the venom of spiders, okay? So just be aware of that. Again, fun earthworms to play with. I see everybody going squishy faces. Things like this, like the centipedes, especially like the house centipedes, they can get a sting and a bite. So just kind of leave those to their own demise. So again, you can easily use a card to pick them up. But again, just using these animals, see if you can sort, because we've given you a whole lot of organisms to try to figure out what levels they are. All right, we're going to start off with our cool composting, and this is over at Tulipans at Tyson's Lagoon.
It's our cool composting area. Art is getting ready to move it over to the other area, so then we can have a lot of good compost. But this cool composting, this has been here for over 2 months now. You can see it's still kind of dark, and it's still very good, but it took us 2 months versus 2 weeks.
All right, so you see that dark color. So at Tulipans, we are able to make our own soil. So we use the parent rock, the bedrock that's there. It's broken into smaller pieces, the sand. Then we start mixing in our compost that gives us our organic matter. And then we end up with actually a very good, healthy soil. All right, so if you are cool composting at home, one thing is that you have to be constantly mixing. Remember the heat we saw earlier with those microbes. As they're breaking things down, you've got to aerate it, or else the microbes will die out themselves. So again, you see the food waste, grass clippings, wood chips. We'll give you a recipe here that you can look at as well. All right, so this is again at Tyson's Lagoon, and we are going to show you how to make another variety of some hot compost.
Now we're going to make some compost. Art has food waste in there. So notice we have 1 part food waste. So he's going to dump it into the container, and he's going to get it all in there. Then the next thing, so that's our food waste. That's providing nutrients that we're going to break down. But if we just left it in there, it wouldn't work. We need a source of nitrogen. And so if you look at this, this is our horse manure. So he's going to mix that in with the food waste. Then the other thing it needs is carbon. So we use just plain old wood chips. It has to be small, can't be large, and he's going to dump that. So this is our 1 part food, 1 part horse manure or nitrogen, and 1 part carbon. Then we're going to, so Huggis, do you want to bring that a little bit so I can see the inside of it there? So if you notice in there, it looks just brown. Yeah, but you can start seeing the food waste. We're going to add a little bit of water and then close it up and then aerate it. So we're just going to put a little water in it, and we're going to close it down, and we're going to let chemistry do its magic. So we're going to have to aerate it, and that's what Hagos is doing right now. And we'll be, within a week to 2 weeks, it'll be ready to go as the compost that we've seen. Thank you.
All right, so you see there are lots of different kinds of composters now. We save our compost daily from our homes, and then you saw the little coffee container we put it in. And then we just daily bring it down to Thule. So it's not sitting around for a long time. Hopefully, maybe one day we will be able to do a community composting where you can save your food scraps and bring them to Masonic, because we do need more of the food waste. All right, now this is what's happening next. As it starts to cool down, things change.
We're turning the compost in there to get the air in the area. Now we're going to stop it. So stop it, and then we're going to open it up. So open it up. And when we look inside, there is lots of compost being created. Now we're going to take the temperature of it, and how we're going to do that is Art's going to put in the thermometer, and we can start measuring the temperature. So it's cooled off, so now we know it's ready to go.
All right, so we do have to track the temperature, and that's how we know if it is done, if it is ready or not. So after
we're going to dump the compost that we just created, and we're just putting it in a container. And then we're going to bring it, Art's going to bring it to the pile that we have, an active pile that we mature the areas to. So let's walk over with Art and let's see our compost pile over here. So as we walk in here, he's going to dump it in, and it will stay there for about 2 months, and then our compost is ready to be used.
So you see how you basically move from one thing to another, like you keep switching them around. At home, I've got 3 big wire bins, and I kind of just take the wire off of one and I flop all of that into the next one. So again, it's constantly moving it so that it aerates it, and again, can break down. Now you see those little pieces of white that are still in that compost. Those are usually eggshells. So the eggshells break into smaller pieces, but not necessarily decompose. And you'll see some of the other plants in the background. Again, those are plants that we grow. Kids help us grow them, and then those will be planted up around the Masonic Home. All right, so again, I mentioned that I live in North Carolina. I want you to look at, this is the area where I live, it's Lake Norman. We'll see if the organisms are the same.
To go.
Okay, so for some of our materials that you might need today, you could use a shovel or a little trowel. You could even use a spoon or fork or knife. I do have some plain index cards and some tape. And if you remember from last week, we also have our insect identification cards. So we're going to be using those. So your job is to see if you can take a hike around your neighborhood and see what you can find. Look at the different types of soil. So I'm going to dig right here. If you look at this big leaf pile and stick pile, this is an old garden bed where we had some flowers that were growing, and we just covered them up with all the sticks and the leaves. Let's see what's happened. Come on in here. Let's see. So if I dig down, move these leaves. Oh, look at what I'm starting to see already. Let's see. We've got some worms. Now again, worms can't hurt you. They don't have little mouths that can get you or anything. So you can find those, and so this is where you'll use that classification chart. We'll see what things we can find. Now, if you look at this soil, so this is that same parent soil. It's got a lot more organic matter in it, compost and all, but you also see all the roots from the trees and the plants that were here before. So again, there's some rock that helps with the aeration. But again, we've got a lot of organic matter in here. Oh, let me snag this little one. Oh, did I get him? Oh, here, I'm trying to find this little roly-poly. There he is. There, that's a little roly-poly, or a pill bug. Those are actually crustaceans. They have gills, so they have to be where it is a little bit moist. So that's why he's like here in the shade underneath all these leaves and all. Again, these are great little pets to have if you want to make a little terrarium and keep these in there. A lot of people that have other pets, they'll use these to clean up after their frogs and turtles and all. All right, let's see what else we can find.
Now I see you guys, some of you guys are making faces. Creepy.
Now you won't find any, you won't be able to see the funguses, bacteria, those things. You'll just see some of the larger animals. And now you also, if you've got a hand lens, something like that, you can also use that to help look for things. And you can, if you find something, you want to put it in a little tub, you can do that as well. All right, let's keep looking.
All right, so you see, obviously in North Carolina, we've got a lot more water than you guys do here in California. You can wear gloves if you like to. I'm an animal person. I'd rather feel the soil and feel the rocks and feel the organisms moving around. So I just use my hands. Again, just beware of what's around that is not anything that can hurt you. Again, make sure you're not standing in the middle of an ant pile. But again, you guys don't have as much space here as we do, but you can go to your parks, go back hiking, and just get outside and just kind of look around. You'd be surprised how much stuff you have. Now in this next clip, what you didn't see me do is move this hose reel. So I have this big box of hose that I moved out of the way before we got started. See, I've already moved it.
Here we are again at another part of the garden that has a fair bit of organic matter. And you look at the profile here, just a little bit of the soil that's on top. See how these are little chunks? Okay. Now we also have some other organisms here. Now again, real easy thing to do is just simply put it in a little top like that.
You don't have
now
to
look at your cards, your insect classification cards.
Really fun.
We included ones that are not necessarily insects too. See if you can figure out what this one is. I love these guys. It's kind of cold here again, so it may take them a minute to wake up.
You guys know what that is?
You guys know what this is? Yeah, it's a slug. It's like a snail that doesn't have a shell. And if we can get him to wake up, he's got some antennas. Oh, there his antennas are starting to come out. So again, this is one of our larger decomposers. No, he just pulled it back in. Okay, on your insect identification cards, there's also a snail. So the soft, squishy animal is inside that shell. The animal is the one that makes the shell. As it grows larger, it makes a larger shell. And again, it's similar to the group of the slugs, where it is simply a decomposer. So its job is to break up all this leaf matter, make little holes in the ground so there's more air to get through, leave their little poop trails. I'm gonna put my little slug back down in here because again, I want him to stay where they live because this has got all the things that he needs to live there. I don't want to take him away from his home. All right, so again, for this soil, you can see it's pretty crumbly. So it's the red mud with a little bit of organic matter. You see the big leaves and all in there, but it doesn't really stay together. It's not very moist.
All right.
Okay.
So again, that's just looking around in my own backyard. I think it's raining here at the Children's Natural History Museum. But if it's raining, now is a great time, of course, to go out and look because moisture always brings out more of those organisms. All right, this is a little bit of a longer video, but it's all about the composting at Masonic Home in Union City. Again, if you're going down Mission Boulevard between Dry Creek Park and the Masonic Home, you will see up top, you will see a lot of times our tractors moving and you'll see some piles of compost and you can even see all the trees that have been planted there for a while. So here we go.
The inspiration for the restoration at the Masonic Home was an area that the Mass Science Nucleus works with Alameda County Flood Control and Water Conservation District called Tule Ponds at Tyson's Lagoon. Our role in the Masonic Restoration Project is to coordinate the science to make it work. The long-term goal is a complete reforestation of about 1,000 acres, and that includes the Masonic Home, Cal State East Bay, and possibly East Bay Regional.
We have a new reforestation program in partnership with TriSed and Math Nucleus. And that partnership is bringing back some of the native species to the hillsides. So we're planting trees on the hillside and we're using that soil amendment to help those trees grow.
And we started to look at using food waste to accelerate composting. So we looked at different machinery to accelerate it using thermophilic composting, which means getting your food waste in a closed bin system to increase its heat and creating compost much quicker than you could naturally. Carbon sequestration is a process by which you're holding carbon into the soil and it's not released to the atmosphere. Using the food waste and not putting in the landfill, it basically prevents the creation of methane. You're also creating horse manure, which is providing nitrogen, and you're not allowing that to release as methane. And so you're making a mixture that's enriching the soil and getting the nitrogen into the soil, the carbon into the soil, and you're creating just an excellent blend between preventing those methane gases, the greenhouse gases, from escaping, and creating an area that will later be able to support trees, which the soil right now can't support the trees because it's been devoid of decomposition for years.
My name is Manuel Gallardo. I'm the executive chef here at Masonic Homes of California. We do approximately 900 meals per day, times 365. All of our waste product goes into the bins. Scraps, everything except hard bones. So from here, it gets taken downstairs by our crew, and then somebody from Tri-State comes and picks it up and takes it all the way up to the top. And then they bring us back clean, empty bins. And that happens 6 days a week. I would say that we're probably down 50 to 60% by composting rather than filling up trash bags.
We've saved quite a bit of money over the years that we've been doing this program, as our food waste is no longer being moved into our landfills. And our residents have really been actively engaged in the entire process. They're part of the farming and they're part of the byproduct of the farming, and they're enjoying this as well. This is actually the first Masonic home in California, and the building was built originally in 1892.
Been here in our family since 1917, but actually started with John Rock in 1884. He was a German immigrant that came here in the 1850s and was involved in our Civil War.
John Rock was a master mason. John Rock was instrumental in the landscaping initially for the Masonic homes and provided all of the trees and all of the shrubbery currently located here.
Well, after John Rock, my grandfather became interested in the property. In the course of the transition, selling of the property to a developer, the city preserved some acreage for a park, and eventually it turned out to be about 21 acres, which is what's here today.
Yeah, so right now we have about 30 acres that we are going to partner with Dig Deep Farms. And those 30 acres, we will probably begin with a 5-acre parcel and probably expand quickly to 10 acres. And those will be planted by our partnership with the Alameda County Deputy Sheriff's Association.
So working with the Masonic Homes of Union City has been a great opportunity for us. This is some of the last fertile flatland on the bay side of Alameda County, and it's just a golden opportunity for us. It'll allow us to increase the amount of produce that we are cycling through our program, increase our sales, provide more employment opportunities for the youth of Alameda County. It's just a wonderful opportunity. We were searching for a way where we could make an impact on economic development, and we created a social enterprise called Dig Deep Farms. And we were able to secure several grants, employed folks from the ages of 16 up to the ages of 40. One of our chief goals was to be able to link those folks coming through our clinical case management program to jobs in the urban agriculture, local food system world. And we've been reasonably successful doing that. And the opportunity to bring the compost that's being generated from the food waste out of the Masonic homes and use it on our farming operation is a wonderful environmental opportunity. It's a opportunity to do an urban closed circle farming operation to sell produce back into the communities that are food deserts within our community. I think is a unique opportunity.
So what we decided to do was make compost, make piles, start mixing it in the soil, leaving it fallow for about 2 years, and then starting to put trees that we started here at the California Nursery.
Today, we're going to just try to put this road in so they can haul the composting stuff up to the top of the hill. It's probably going to be one of the biggest restoration projects in Alameda County.
So for the hillsides, we see reforestation as an important byproduct of what we're doing in these programs, and we'll be able to see the fruits of that labor hopefully in the next 10 to 20 years as we see those trees grow on the hillside. I think it's been a great partnership to be able to give back to the community and to be able to be more conscious about the environment here.
Okay, so again, you see that there's quite a bit going on with this project. It's not just simply taking food waste. We have to train all the people in the kitchen, maintenance staff. It involves a lot of work trying to keep the composter going. It involves planting. So there's just a whole big component that goes together, but you all are the ones that are going to be seeing the difference, okay? As we look, this is up on the top of the hill. So again, this is what you could probably see when you're down on a clear day. You can see San Francisco, you see a little bit of it there. And I'm just gonna film this so that we go through this. Again, you see different types of dirt, different colors of dirt. That's the horse barn next to us. Horses have teeth on the top and the bottom. So when they eat grass, they are pulling out the roots. So that area, that's why it's so bare over there. Again, looking across the bay, the water of the bay, look, there are two low plateaus that are very dark. Those are about 3 feet of compost. Those have been planted. Again, you see Coyote Hills, the mountains off towards Santa Cruz. And what's another thing that's pretty cool here, I don't know if you guys can see just below these containers, kind of in the middle of the picture, they have a little airway. So the gentlemen at Masonic, they like to practice flying their remote control airplanes, but they're big airplanes. And this is one of the only airstrips in the area. I think there's one other one in Livermore. So that's kind of fun too. So anyway, as we looked at through, again, we're mixing our compost up with the native soil, which there's not much of. So that's how we were able to enrich that soil. So as we look at just as compost is part of life, oh, look at those peaches. Ugh. See how they get all fuzzy? Oh, that's all the different kinds of molds. So our microorganisms, again, feed on this living matter. These organisms decay. They break things down. The worms eat and they wiggle through the soil, making those airways and depositing their poop and their nutrients. And you also see that the plant roots are breaking down the soil. Now that one, as the roots come down, you see how that leaf just disappears. All that's left is kind of the skeleton, the venation of that leaf. But again, it's going to get broken down by those roots. You see the lovely mealworm bot kind of things in the orange there. And you see, of course, our decomposing rat that's there. Oh, it blows up because again, those gases kind of like vinegar, baking soda. And then again, the heat's generated, but it's how we decompose, how we get rid of things. So these little critters, even those little microscopic ones, again, are very important to this cycle. Now, this decay also emits those greenhouse gases. So if you just put food out, and like same thing with the cows and the horses, just putting out the manure, it's going to create more methane. That is a greenhouse gas. That's what we're trying to reduce. By mixing that manure in with the food waste and the wood chips, that then creates, gets rid of that methane. All right. So again, we're trying to monitor that flow of carbon dioxide. The more plants or trees that we can plant as they photosynthesize, they become a carbon bank. They take in all that carbon dioxide, and then it's held within the soil. All right. So again, this is a very important part of making our environment clean air, healthy soil, healthy food.